The first time he said it, no one believed him. "I will only marry you," he had told her. Standing in the dusty middle of a half-built street where the wind carried the smell of horses, leather, and long days under a burning sun. Folks nearby laughed it off as young, foolish talk, the kind that fades faster than boot prints after a storm. But he did not laugh. He never did. Years passed, and the town grew the way all Old West towns did, slow and stubborn. Wooden buildings rose where there had been nothing but open land. A general store, a saloon with swinging doors, a small church that leaned just enough to make people nervous on windy days. Life moved on, and so did people. But he stayed. They called him a quiet cowboy, the kind who spoke only when needed and rode harder than most men cared to. His hat was always pulled low, his coat worn but clean, and his eyes carried a weight that made others think twice before asking questions. He worked cattle, fixed fences, and kept to himself. But every now and then, when the sun dipped low and painted the sky in fire, he would ride past her family's place, not stopping, not calling out, just passing by as if to remind the world that he had not forgotten. She had tried to forget. Back then, she had been softer, with laughter that came easy and dreams that stretched beyond the horizon. The promise he made had scared her more than it thrilled her. Life in the Old West was not made for promises like that. It was made for survival, for hard choices, for letting go before something could be taken from you. So she let him ride away without an answer, thinking time would do what it always did. Change things. But time did not change him. If anything, it carved him into something stronger, something unshakable. While others found wives, built families, or drifted out of town chasing gold or trouble, he remained, the cowboy who waited. The one who turned down every offer, every hint, every chance at a different life. People stopped asking him why. They already knew the answer. She had changed too, though she would not admit it out loud. The years had taught her how to carry herself with quiet strength. She helped run her family's home, took on responsibilities she once feared, and learned how to hide the questions that never quite left her mind. Every time she saw him ride by, something inside her stirred, something she had buried deep. Regret, maybe, or something far more dangerous. It was on a late summer evening when the air hung heavy and still that everything began to shift. The kind of evening where even the town seemed to hold its breath. She stood by the fence watching the distant road, though she would not say why. And then she saw him. This time he did not ride past. He slowed his horse, dust rising around him like a quiet storm, and stopped just a few steps away. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched, thick with all the years that had passed between them. "You remember what I said?" he finally spoke, his voice steady but low. She felt her heart tighten, though her face remained calm. "People say a lot of things when they are young. I was not just talking," he replied. The way he looked at her had not changed. It was not soft, not uncertain. It was certain in a way that made it hard to breathe, like he had made his choice long ago and never once doubted it. "I waited," he added. Those words settled between them, heavier than anything else he could have said. She looked away for a moment, toward the fading light, trying to gather her thoughts. Waiting was not something people did here, not for this long, not without reason. "You should not have," she said quietly. "Maybe," he answered. "But I did." The wind picked up slightly, brushing loose strands of her hair across her face. She did not move to fix them. Her mind raced, caught between the past she had tried to leave behind and the man standing in front of her who had never left at all. "You still think things can be that simple?" she asked, her voice softer now, almost unsure. He stepped down from his horse, boots hitting the ground with quiet purpose. "It was never simple," he said. "That is why I stayed." She met his gaze then, really met it, and for the first time in years she felt the full weight of his promise. Not as something distant or foolish, but as something real. Something that had been waiting, just like he had. Before she could speak again, a sharp sound echoed from the direction of the town, a shout, then another. Urgent, panicked, they both turned at once. And in that moment, whatever was about to be said between them was left hanging, unfinished, as the quiet evening broke into something neither of them could ignore. The shout came again, louder this time, cutting through the still air like a warning bell. no one could ignore. Horses in the distance shifted and stamped, and somewhere a door slammed hard against wood. The calm of the evening was gone in an instant. He was already moving. "Stay here," he said, quick and firm as he reached for the reins. "I am not staying anywhere," she answered just as fast, stepping away from the fence. There was a sharp edge in her voice now, the kind that had been shaped by years of holding her ground. He glanced at her just for a second, and something in his expression softened. Not doubt, not quite. More like he already knew she would not listen. "Then stay close," he said. They moved together toward the town, the dirt road feeling longer than it had moments before. As they got closer, the noise grew clearer. Voices calling out, a woman crying, the hurried sound of boots against wooden steps. It was not the usual kind of trouble, not a bar fight or a passing argument. This felt different, tighter, like something had gone wrong in a way that could not be easily fixed. By the time they reached the main street, a small crowd had already gathered near the general store. A lantern swung by the door, casting uneven light across worried faces. A wagon stood nearby, its back half open and one wheel slightly crooked. "What happened?" someone called out. "Came out of nowhere," another voice answered. "Riders fast, took off just as quick." He stepped forward, his presence parting the edge of the crowd without a word. People recognized him. They always did. A man like him did not need to raise his voice to be heard. "Who?" he asked. The storekeeper, a broad man with tired eyes, shook his head. Could not see clear, faces covered. But they knew what they were after. At that, a chill ran through her. She moved closer, her eyes scanning the scene. A crate had been broken open near the wagon, its contents scattered, supplies, flour, tools, small things that mattered more than people liked to admit. "Did they take anything?" she asked. The storekeeper hesitated, then nodded slowly. "A lockbox came in on the last delivery. Was not meant to stay here long." "What was in it?" she pressed. "Not mine to say," he replied, lowering his voice. "But whoever sent those riders knew exactly when it would arrive." The crowd murmured at that, unease spreading like wildfire. This was no random act. This was planned. He crouched near the wagon, running his fingers along the edge where the crate had been forced open. His movements were careful, steady, the kind of focus that shut out everything else. "They rode east," someone offered. He nodded once, as if confirming something he already suspected. Then he stood, brushing dust from his hands. "This is not the first time," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. She caught that and frowned. "What do you mean?" He looked at her, and for a moment she saw something she had not seen before. Not just determination, but concern. "Real concern. There have been whispers," he said. "Out on the trail, wagons going missing. Deliveries that never make it where they are meant to go." "Why did no one say anything?" she asked. "Because nothing like this happened close to home," he answered. Until now, the weight of that settled heavy in her chest. This was not just trouble passing through. It had found its way here, to their town, to their lives. A sudden movement near the edge of the crowd caught her attention. A young boy, no older than 10, stood frozen, his face pale. One of the townsfolk knelt beside him, trying to calm him down. "He saw something," the woman said, looking up. He stepped closer, lowering himself slightly to meet the boy's eye level. "You can tell me," he said, his voice softer now. The boy swallowed hard. "They were looking at me," he said. Before they left, a silence fell over those closest enough to hear. "What do you mean?" she asked gently. "One of them," the boy continued, his voice shaking. "He turned back, like he wanted to remember my face." A chill moved through the crowd, deeper this time. He straightened slowly, his jaw tightening. That kind of detail did not belong in a simple robbery. It meant something else, something worse. She looked at him, searching his face. "What are you thinking?" "That this is not over," he said. The lantern light flickered between them, casting long shadows that stretched across the wooden boards and dirt street. The town felt smaller now, like the walls had closed in without warning. "And the lockbox?" she asked. If it was not just supplies, then what was worth all this? He did not answer right away. His gaze shifted toward the dark stretch of road leading out of town, the same direction the riders had gone. "Whatever it is," he said finally, It is not just trouble for the people who sent it. His eyes met hers again, steady and certain in a way that made her heart beat faster for reasons she could not fully separate. It is trouble for anyone connected to it. Before she could respond, another voice called out from behind them, urgent, breathless. "They left something," the man said. Back near the edge of town, every head turned at once. Without another word, he moved, and she followed close behind. The tension between them now tangled with something far bigger than either of them had expected. As they reached the edge of the road, the man pointed toward the ground. There, half buried in the dust, was a small object wrapped in cloth. And for reasons she could not explain, the moment she saw it, she felt certain of one thing. This was meant to be found. No one moved at first. The cloth-wrapped object sat in the dirt like it had been placed there with purpose, not dropped in a hurry. The wind brushed over it, lifting one corner just enough to show a hint of dark leather beneath. He stepped forward slowly, every movement measured. She stayed close behind him, her eyes fixed on the small bundle. The rest of the townsfolk hung back, as if an invisible line had been drawn in the dust. "Careful," someone muttered. He crouched and reached out, then paused just before touching it. For a moment, he simply looked at it, like he was weighing more than just what sat in front of him. And then he picked it up. The cloth was tied tight, but not knotted in any complicated way. He loosened it with steady hands and unfolded the fabric. Inside was a small leather pouch, worn, but not old. The kind of thing a person would carry close, not toss aside. "What is it?" she asked, her voice low. He opened the pouch and tipped it slightly. A piece of paper slipped into his hand, folded neat and precise. The crowd leaned in, the silence stretching thin. He unfolded the paper. His expression changed. It was subtle, but she saw it. The slight tightening around his eyes, the way his shoulders stiffened. Something about what he was reading had struck deeper than anything else that night. "What does it say?" she asked. He did not answer right away. Instead, he folded the paper again, slower this time, like he was buying himself a second to think. "It is nothing," he said finally, though the words did not carry much weight. She frowned. "That is not true." He looked at her, and for a moment it felt like the rest of the world had fallen away again. Just the two of them, standing too close to something neither of them could ignore. "It is a warning," he admitted. The murmurs started again behind them, louder now. "A warning for who?" she pressed. "For this town," he said. She held his gaze, searching for more. "That is not all of it." He hesitated. "It mentions a name," he said. Her chest tightened. "Whose?" He glanced past her, toward the crowd, then back again. "Mine." The words settled heavy between them. For a second she could not speak. All the questions she had been holding back came rushing forward at once. "Why would they leave something like this for you?" she asked. "That is what I need to find out," he replied. But she shook her head slightly. "No, you already have some idea." He did not deny it. That was answer enough. A man from the crowd stepped forward, his face lined with worry. "If this is about you, then maybe you should take it and go. No use bringing trouble down on all of us." A few others nodded, not out of anger, but fear. The kind of fear that spreads fast in a place where people depend on each other to stay safe. She felt something flare up inside her at that. "He has been here longer than most of you," she said. "He is not the one bringing trouble. Trouble came looking for him." The man did not argue, but he did not back down either. That is the same thing, sometimes. He stepped between them before the tension could rise further. "Enough," he said, calm but firm. "This is not their fight." "It is now," she said quietly. He turned to her, his expression shifting again. "That is exactly what I am trying to prevent." She crossed her arms slightly, holding her ground. "You do not get to decide that for me." Something flickered in his eyes at that, not anger. Something closer to respect, mixed with concern. "You do not know what you are stepping into," he said. "Then tell me," she answered. He looked down at the folded paper in his hand, then back at her. The noise of the crowd faded again, not because it was quiet, but because neither of them was listening anymore. "This is not just about a stolen lockbox," he said. "There are people out there who move things others are not supposed to see, messages, money, information. That can shift more than just a single town." And you are part of that? She asked. No, he said. But I crossed paths with it once. When? A long time ago, he replied. She studied him, trying to piece together the parts of his life he had never shared. The years he had spent out on the trail, the reasons he had come back and stayed. Is that why you waited? She asked suddenly. The question caught him off guard. She could see it. For me, she added, softer now. Or because you were hiding from something like this. He held her gaze, and for the first time, he did not answer right away. I stayed because I meant what I said, he told her. That is not what I asked? No, he agreed. But it is the truth. The wind picked up again, stronger now, carrying dust across the road and tugging at their clothes. The town behind them felt restless, like it knew this was only the beginning of something bigger. She looked down at the pouch, then at the road stretching into the dark. If they left this for you, she said, then they are not done. No, he said. They are not. A distant sound echoed faintly, almost lost in the wind. Hoofbeats, not close yet. But coming, they both heard it. And this time, neither of them spoke as they turned toward the sound, knowing that whatever had started was already on its way back. The sound of hoofbeats grew clearer, steady and fast, echoing through the quiet edge of town like a warning no one could mistake. The wind carried it in waves, rising and falling, but always coming closer. People began to move back, instinct taking over. Doors opened, then shut just as quickly. Lanterns were lifted, then lowered. The kind of tension that made a place feel smaller, tighter, like there was nowhere to run. He did not move. His hand rested lightly near his side, not reaching, not rushing. Just ready. His eyes stayed fixed on the dark stretch of road where the riders would appear. The same road he had watched 100 times before, though never like this. She stood beside him, her heart beating faster with each passing second. Part of her wanted to step back, to do what others were doing and find safety behind a closed door. But she stayed. You can still go, he said quietly, not looking at her. She shook her head, even though he could not see it. You already know I will not. A faint shape appeared in the distance, then another. Riders, more than one. The crowd had thinned now, leaving only a few people at a safe distance, watching with a mix of fear and helpless curiosity. No one wanted to leave completely, but no one wanted to stand too close either. They came back, she said under her breath. No, he replied. They never really left. The riders slowed as they reached the edge of the lantern light. Their faces were still covered, shadows hiding what could not be seen, but their presence was enough. Calm, controlled, like they had no reason to rush. One of them moved forward slightly, taking the lead. You found it, the rider called out, voice low but clear. He did not answer. The rider tilted his head just a little. That was the idea. Silence followed, thick and heavy. What do you want? He asked finally. A simple thing, the rider replied. What was taken belongs to us. The lockbox, she said, her voice cutting in before she could stop herself. The rider's gaze shifted toward her. Even without seeing his face, she felt it. A slow, measuring look. And more than that, the rider added. Things tied to it. People who might know where it is headed. Her chest tightened. She understood now. This was not just about what had been stolen. It was about control. About making sure nothing slipped out of their reach. You think he knows something, she said. The rider gave a slight nod. We know he does. He stepped forward then, placing himself just a bit ahead of her, not blocking her, but close enough to make a point. You are wrong, he said. Am I? The rider asked. Then why leave a message with your name? The question hung in the air. She looked at him, waiting. This was the moment where he could deny it, could push it away and make it someone else's problem. But he did not. You should not have come here, he said instead. The rider let out a quiet breath, almost like a laugh. We go where we need to. The tension stretched tighter, like a rope pulled to its limit. Behind them, one of the townsfolk shifted nervously. A board creaked under someone's foot. Small sounds that felt too loud in the silence. She stepped forward just enough to stand beside him again. If you want answers, you do not come in the dark like this, she said. You talk? The rider's attention moved back to her. And you are? No one you need to worry about, he said quickly. That is not your choice, she replied, her voice firm. The rider seemed to consider that. Bold, he said. Not common out here. She held her ground. Neither is leaving warnings in the dirt. For a moment it felt like something might shift. Like this could turn into words instead of something worse. But then another rider moved, just slightly, and the air changed again. We are done talking, the lead rider said. The words landed heavy. He took a slow breath, his focus sharpening. Then you came all this way for nothing. Not quite, the rider replied. We came for you. The meaning was clear. Her stomach dropped. No, she said, before she could stop herself. He glanced at her just for a second. There was something in his eyes now that had not been there before. Not fear, something deeper, like he had already made a decision. This is not your fight, he said again. You do not get to say that now, she answered, her voice unsteady but strong. The riders shifted, their horses restless under them. Last chance, the lead rider called out. Come with us and the town stays out of it. A murmur rose from the few people still watching. Fear, sharp and immediate. She looked at him, her thoughts racing. This was it. The moment everything had been building toward. You cannot go with them, she said, almost a whisper. He did not respond right away. The wind moved through the street, carrying dust and the faint smell of something distant. The kind of moment that felt like it could break in any direction. I stayed, he said quietly, more to her than anyone else. For a reason, her throat tightened. Then stay now. The riders waited, patient in a way that made it worse. Every second stretched longer, every breath felt heavier. And as he stood there, caught between the promise he had made long ago and the danger standing in front of him now, it became clear that whatever choice he made next would change everything. The silence stretched so long it felt like the whole town had stopped breathing. He looked at the riders, then at the dark road behind them, and finally at her. For a moment, everything else faded. The fear, the noise, the weight of what stood in front of him. All that remained was the promise he had carried for years. I am not going with you, he said. The words were steady, clear, and final. A shift ran through the riders, subtle but sharp. The lead rider leaned forward slightly in the saddle. Then you leave us no choice. Before the tension could snap, she stepped forward. You already made your choice when you came here, she said. But you made one mistake. The rider's attention fixed on her again. And what is that? You thought he was the only one who knew anything, she replied. He turned to her quickly, surprise flashing across his face. What are you doing? Trust me, she said softly, not looking at him. Then she faced the riders again. The lockbox you are looking for was never meant to stay in this town, she continued. It was moved before you even got here. A murmur passed through the group of riders. The lead rider narrowed his gaze. Where? She let the question hang for a second, just long enough. Far enough that you will not catch it tonight, she said. It was not a full answer, but it was enough to shift the moment. Enough to plant doubt? He understood what she was doing now. Buying time, turning the focus away from him, taking a risk that could cost her just as much. You expect us to believe that? The rider asked. You came for information, she said. I am giving you more than he ever would. The wind picked up again, carrying her words across the quiet street. The riders exchanged glances, quick and unreadable. What do you want in return? The lead rider asked. She felt her heartbeat in her throat, but she kept her voice steady. You leave, she said. You leave this town alone. A long pause followed. Then the rider spoke again. And him? She hesitated just for a fraction of a second. He stays, she said. The weight of that choice settled in the space between them. The rider studied her, then looked at him. Something unspoken passed between them, something tied to the past he had tried to leave behind. You always had a way of making things complicated, the rider said to him. He did not respond. Finally, the rider straightened slightly. We will find what we are looking for, he said. With or without your help. Then you should start riding, she replied. Because every minute you stand here, it gets further away. Another pause. Then, slowly, the rider turned his horse. The others followed. The sound of hoofbeats faded into the night, growing quieter until it disappeared completely. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the tension broke. The few townsfolk who had stayed let out quiet breaths, relief washing over them in waves. Doors opened again. Voices returned, softer now, cautious but alive. She stood still, watching the road where the riders had gone until she felt him step closer. "You took a risk," he said. "So did you," she replied. He shook his head slightly. "You do not even know if they believed you. I know they had enough doubt to leave," she said. That was all we needed. He looked at her, really looked this time, as if seeing something new. "Was it true?" he asked. She met his gaze. "Does it matter?" He held her eyes for a long second, then a faint smile touched his face. "No," he admitted. "I guess it does not." The town slowly returned to life around them, but something had changed. Not just the danger that had passed, but the way people looked at him. At her, like they had both stood in the middle of something and held their ground. "What happens now?" she asked. He glanced toward the horizon, where the first hint of dawn was beginning to show. "Now they chase shadows," he said. "And we make sure this place stays out of their path." She nodded, then looked back at him. "And you?" "I stay," he said, simple as that. The same words he had lived by all these years. A quiet settled between them again. But this time it was different, lighter, like something that had been waiting had finally found its place. "You meant it," she said. "I always did." She took a small step closer, her voice softer now. "Even after all this time?" He did not hesitate. There was never anyone else. The truth of it was clear, not just in his words, but in everything he had done. The waiting, the staying, the choice he had just made. She let out a slow breath, feeling something inside her finally settle. "You made it hard," she said. "I know. You waited anyway. I told you I would." She smiled then. Just a little, but it was enough to change everything. "I was not ready back then," she said. "Life out here does not make room for promises like that." "And now?" he asked. She looked around at the town, at the place they had both chosen in different ways, then back at him. "Now I think some promises are worth the wait," she said. The words hung between them, quiet and certain. For a moment neither of them moved. Then he reached for her hand, slow and careful, like he was giving her the chance to step back if she wanted to. She did not. As the sun began to rise over the old west town, painting the sky in soft gold, the long road behind them finally felt like it had led somewhere. The cowboy who waited had kept his word. And this time she was ready to keep hers too.